Welcome in to Greenville Grit, Greenville residents in touch on 103.7 WTIB. This is the local show that keeps you connected and in touch with the issues that affect what's happening in your community. Greenville Grit is sponsored by Ribeyes, Kid Construction, and Greenville Toyota. Now, here are your hosts for Greenville Grit, Terry Williams and Michael Overton.
Welcome to the Greenville Grit. I'm Michael Overton, along with my co-host Terry Williams and our other co-host Dennis Mitchell.
Hey, how you
How
doing?
you guys doing today?
Doing great.
Got a lot to go over today, so we're actually going to change up our scheduling a little. We're going to do a commercial break more towards the end of the show, but
sounds good.
Jump right into it. We always do want to start the show by thanking the sponsors, though. We'll thank them in person today. Greenville Toyota. If you're looking for a new Toyota or Scion vehicle or a new used car, call Craig Goes and the Greenville Toyota team. Or they're located across from Fresh Market on Memorial Drive. Dial the number at 321-3000 or greenvilletoyota.com. Kid Construction Group, the
Green Builder.
That's right. Looking for a home or a renovation, go see Bill Kidd. You can find him on the web at kcgbuildgreen.com. That's kcgbuildgreen.com or on Facebook. The Overton Group, real estate professional, serving all of Eastern North Carolina with an office in off of Evans Street in Greenville, but we literally work Raleigh to the coast. Commercial real estate leasing and sales, property management, business brokerage, and we also do residential management through Michelle Connors, who works with us. And lastly, probably our favorite, because we get to eat it, is Ribeyes Steakhouse.
Ribeyes.
If you're looking for a great steak, they've got good pork chops, good chicken, and a phenomenal salad bar. Yeah. Go see Ribeyes Steakhouse. Mention Greenville Grit. You do get a surprise. And they're located at the corner of Arlington and Fire Tower Road in Greenville, but they also have a location in Williamston. So let's get into the show. Dennis, it's been a while since you've been on. What's it been? Really talking about city council.
It's been a while since we've been together.
I think I was on the last time.
Yeah,
you were, so it's been a while.
I know. I know. We've been out of town. When I was out of town 2 weeks during the taping.
Right.
So, but we really haven't talked about city council stuff. They haven't given us a whole lot to talk about, but. I got some things we want to cover, which is why we're not going to go over we skipped the commercials.
That's right.
So one of the things that bothers me is we talk about fiscal responsibility. We hear a lot of that talk. And last week, I would say it's the first time that I can ever remember where I was angry enough to call city council people. Because when you do it all the time, I said me. And what got me wound up was the low-income housing grants that were given out. If you're not familiar with that, the city council approved to give $150,000 in low-income grants. So this is city money to the developers looking to do low-income construction here. The problem with this is, generally, if every year, this is called, in real estate, this is what we call tax credit housing.
Right.
The reason it's called tax credit is the federal government will offer tax credits to these developers that they can in turn sell for cash or even use against their own taxes. Well, every year, it seems, or every other year, it's really how it's been, the state will look at counties across the state, Pitt County, Beaufort County, Craven County, all of them, and say, we're going to fund a certain number of projects in your area.
That's right.
And the state will give some level of grants to that. And again, the federal government will give tax credits to that. So they go through a scoring process. All of the developers will come into Greenville. They'll all find land that they want to put under contract. They put it under contract, and then they go through the scoring process with the state. The person with the highest scores, if the state is committed to doing that county, wins. My issue is this. We gave grant money offered grant money to two particular developers. Granted, they had the right to ask for the grants, and the other people that were competing for the projects did not, because there's several projects under contract. And as full disclosure, I'm actually a broker for one of them that's under contract. My issue is this. I believe that grants should be used to recruit business and industry to our city. They should not be used when a project is already going to be coming here. And that is my entire issue. If we're using fiscal responsibility, that $150,000, and I was told today that out of the two, the state would, if Pitt County gets funded by the state will only do one.
That's right.
When you receive funding from the state, from the city, when a developer receives a grant, such as what happened, that will actually raise their site score compared to the other people who are competing. Thus, the city, in my opinion, is starting to choose which developer they want to go with.
Right.
Now, talked to one of the council members last week. They said, well, why didn't the other people also apply for the grants? It's through the community development grant. I'm like, I don't know. I knew that this happened a couple of years ago. Matter of fact, 4 years ago, I was involved in one that we lost because the one group asked for grant. They got it. Our group didn't.
Right.
And their score got raised because of the city grant, and they won.
Right.
But if you look at the project being built on Charles Boulevard, where we call Bells Fork, if you don't know where Bells Fork is, it's on Highway 43 South across from Harris Teeter.
Right.
There's new multifamily being built there. That is tax credit housing. Nice looking stuff. That was done without city grants.
Right.
So if the state approves it and gives you, Dennis, you apply for a site, the state comes in and says, all right, your site wins, you're going to build it. City grants or not. Because
So
you're
save
getting
that
tax credits
grant
or
money
not.
for something else.
Well, that's my issue.
Why did they even get involved in it?
Well, there's actually two issues. I did not know who the people were that were doing the application or who they gave the grants. At the time,
Right.
I was so angry, I just wanted to call because I saw that
Right.
they had issued them. And one of them, this is touchy, but one of them was a local developer who this would be the third
Right.
grant they've received from the city in like 3 years. Two of which, this one and another one, were for tax credit housing. That was going to come here anyway. And again, that's my issue. If we're being fiscally responsible,
Right.
why are we giving $150,000 away that essentially is helping that developer to reduce the cost of, it's putting the money in the developer's
Right.
pocket.
Right.
I don't know.
When we could be using it to recruit someone else who wasn't getting any funding to help them offset
But
their
we don't need
cost.
to be approving that type of funding for that
Right.
type of project because my issue entirely was it's coming anyway.
Right.
Why are we giving money away when it's already going to be here? It's not going to reduce the cost of the housing any. It's going to reduce the cost of construction, but it's not going to reduce
Right.
the cost of the
Well,
rents.
I think what bothers me is this goes back to the city council making decisions on items that they haven't done their homework about and don't have complete knowledge of. How can they even make a good, solid, sound fiscal decision with something they don't know enough about in the background of it?
Well, this is all of them. This is 6-0 vote, from what I
I
understand.
know. I'm just saying no one knew, and after the fact, it's too late.
Well, and I spoke to one of them. They said, well, we understand that if this money is given to that developer, then it will make them look good in the eyes of the state. I said, well, yes, it will.
But there's other
because
developers
it will actually
here.
raise their score. So you essentially, if Pitt County gets funded, they have a much higher chance of getting funded
Right.
by the state because of the city backing grant money for their project.
So
you
what happens
choose
is the
developer.
state will choose the county, and then they will select the development based on the scores.
Yes. And site scores are done off of proximity to medical, proximity to grocery stores, accessibility, being able to see the
Right.
property. There's a lot of things, and zoning, obviously, how many units they can get. And I'm sure the developer might play a part in it too. Are they strong enough to do that? And I was fortunate enough 2 years ago that the one I was representing on Highway 43 got funded, as well
Right.
as one in Beaufort County. We were competing against 4 other people.
Right.
And we beat them out just based on site score. It had nothing to do with city grants. Nobody asked for them.
So
And-
really, the project ought to be able to stand on its own.
The project can stand on its own.
Yeah, without the city
So
putting in
why are
money.
we giving money to it?
Yeah.
I don't know. And Dennis, I know you and I talked on the phone, but I wanted to make sure everyone understood. You were on the city council. Am I wrong in being upset about this, or I don't know?
No, I think absolutely in a time where we know that we have so many needs in the city, and it seems like there's no money to do this and no money to do that, but all of a sudden there's money to completely just give away. I mean, it's something that you really got to think about. It's one of those things when I even introduced it in the incentive package to the city council is that you got to be smart, and this is the type of things that you don't do, you don't want to give away money to people who are already going to get money.
Well, where was the money coming from? You said community grant? It was
From the community development grant.
So
Now,
they
you
could-
may know where that money is or what type
That's
of.
money that's set aside for low-income housing. So, I mean, we got all this stuff going on in West Greenville.
Set aside by the city council or by something bigger than that?
They get the money from the federal
From
government.
the federal government.
So they have to use it.
So but there's other things
yeah.
they can use it for. They don't have to give it
Weatherization,
away.
Housing developments
That's
and
what
things
I
like
thought.
that.
Okay.
Abatement properties, all the kind of stuff we
Right.
deal on redevelopment commission.
That's right. So that it could easily been used to complete
definitely.
some projects that have been started or to help complete them
Mm-hmm.
that don't have the funds to finish.
Well, the other thing is how often should a city continue to fund a particular developer? And I'm not trying
Right.
to pick on the one, but this
know.
goes for even in the future. Are we in the business? Are we going to choose a preferred developer for the city? And I say that genuinely because there are some cities that actually do have preferred developers. Is that the road that we want to go down?
But won't that discourage other developers from
And
even
I-
trying to come?
I feel that way.
Yeah,
I know
we
I
don't
got
need
into a
that.
discussion with another very good friend of mine, and he kind of saw it differently than I did, and he's also familiar with this. He said, well,
Mm-hmm. Right.
some cities will go in and they'll have a preferred developer, and they have
Mm-hmm.
first shot at all of them. That may be right. That may be wrong. I don't know. I have
Well, it
my
is
opinion
something
that I don't
definitely
think
to be
it's
discussing and talk about because,
And I think this question will become more and more relevant as time goes on.
right, that's right.
well. That got me going. That's one of the things I wanted to open the show with. Am I a sore loser? Probably. I guess you could argue that.
Yeah, but I think you do have a legitimate
The
argument about
issue
it.
that I have is I knew that these grants could have been there. I did tell my developer to double check with the city. I don't know if he didn't,
Mm-hmm.
but really at the end of the day, my issue is I'm not comfortable asking the city for money when I know that project's coming
That's right.
because I am paying out of my pocket as a taxpayer in the city to fund this
Exactly.
project. And I guess you said the city doesn't put that money aside, the federal government does,
You
but
pay- you
we still
pay
pay
for
the
But the
taxpayers.
city uses it, and if they use it in a good way through that community development area, that could make a huge difference. So still, nonetheless, even though they got it from somewhere else, we still expect them to use it in a good way, in a smart way.
Well,
Well,
I don't know. That's
that's
what's
that's
had me
one
going,
issue.
Dennis. What's had you going lately?
The bond
bond.
bomb.
Well, I knew we were going to have that discussion. That's why we
The
decided not to
bond
do it.
bomb.
Bomb.
Well, why don't you start it out, man?
I mean, of course, we met for the bond commission, I don't know, 12, 13 times over the course of
I'd
about
say
4 or
8.
5 months.
Longer than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a
Well,
long
A
time.
long time, and we dug in pretty deep, got a lot of detailed information on a lot of projects, and we came back with a bond package. Whether you agree with it or not, I think we talked about on this show that we think it deserved an up and down vote with the citizens. Community, it was a collective group appointed by all the council members. We came together, we came with this package, and it deserved the up and down votes for the citizens. Well, after 2 hours of meeting on there at that planning session, the city council said, no, we're smarter than you guys. This is the bond package we're going to bring up. And one of those things included is a greenway that did not get any type of time nor consideration through the entire bond committee process.
Can I add something else about the Greenway?
Uh-huh.
One that is also not receiving any federal or state funds.
No, completely funded by the city.
Right.
But the bad thing about it, the city has already funded 2 other additional greenways that haven't even started being built yet. So we got 2 greenways waiting to be built. We funded another one. So in essence, you're going to have this bond money just sitting there. How much?
$750,000.
$750,000 sitting there for a few years, not even being used.
Well, it's not just that. There's actually one thing to add, Terry. This will get you good. This gets you going. $750,000. You know how long this greenway is? About 3/4 of a mile. That's $1 million a mile.
Wow.
That's ridiculous.
So this is the $1 million mile greenway. That is going to be the new name.
$1 million.
$1 million mile.
Yeah.
$1 million
Well,
mile
the other
greenway.
item that bothered me was the sidewalk because when we discussed it in all the bond meetings, our city manager made it clear that they do receive some funding on sidewalks.
Absolutely.
So even though we did include, I believe, $750,000 for sidewalks, we included an amount, maybe it was
Thought it was
$500,000.
half a million.
I
Yeah,
can't, 500,000 in the original to help. She already made it very clear they get funding for the sidewalk. So I don't even understand at this point why that was even put in there. I'll tell you, the 10th Street Connector 1.75 was really for the enhancements, not the actual road or curbing. It was for enhancements to make it look a certain way. I don't know if that also included the new gateway area that they want to try to do at Evans Street. I'm not sure how much
I
that.
believe that it does, but it's not in the most recent newsletter.
Right.
But I do think that it does have some. I think there was some extra money allocated on the streets for Dickinson because the state is basically delayed Dickinson any funding for that.
Let's give a quick recap of the timeline, because that's what's bothering me. Streets, we all know, is just has to be done, has to be taken care of. $8 million for streets is going to cover just a section of Arlington Boulevard. It's not going to do what the public thinks it's going to do. They're not going to be able to ride around on all the city-owned streets, and they're going to all be repaired if they pass this bond. It's barely going to cover. You know, they covered that with us when we were in that meeting. It's just going to do a very small amount for that. If we were going to think about a bond, then maybe all of this amount should have been, like we suggested, a little higher, did we not, on our amount for the street bond? Was it 11 or 14 or, you know, it's hard to remember exactly.
I
We
think
had
our street bond
suggested
was only
it-
$10.5 million.
10 and a half, okay. But it was more than this. The 10th Street connector money and the 5th Street, well, the 5th Street Phase 2, which, you know, in the beginning, I was in favor of that, only because I felt like we should complete something we've already
Well,
started.
what's interesting, and I know that you were in favor of that, Terry.
Nobody
but
else
no one
was.
else on that bond committee
Nobody
was.
else
So
was.
they
really.
went back
Well,
and added
Dennis
that in.
was, and a few did express
out of the
interest in
16
it.
people-
But it wasn't overwhelming.
No,
it
you
was
can
not
never get a
overwhelming.
vote on it.
No, we would have not. It got axed pretty much right when we finally were narrowing everything down from the 16 or so items that we had started with, and the streetscape was on it. Then it got axed right away, and then they started talking about other things. So I was shocked, actually, when I saw it come back up. What's concerning me, I guess, I'm trying to make a point, not doing a very good job of it today, but is the money for the 10th Street connector, the Greenway, whenever it is used, sidewalks, I'm not sure that would get used sooner, and the 5th Street, which we're actually, the next phase of it is shovel-ready. We're ready to go. All of this goes before the public at voting in November. Then there's a wait. It doesn't immediately, we can't get going.
No.
There's a wait for that. Street repairs, I would think, would be a priority, and they'll get started on that. But you can't
Well,
even
yeah, but
use
you-
this
you
money
can't-
on the 10th Street connector or the others until that road is done and finished. We're talking 2 or 3 years.
And you're going to be taxed for that
And
money.
we'll be taxed for
and they're not
it.
even
and-
going to issue the bonds until later.
Okay,
Exactly.
but actually, there's something else with the street improvements. You guys, when you were on council, passed $4 million for street improvements. It took them how long before they started using that money? And it had nothing to do with the
Well,
bond.
I don't remember how long it took them to start, but I know
Several
it's
years.
not completely
Yeah.
finished using
I understand,
it.
but it took them at least. You were not on the you weren't on
Oh,
the
yeah,
council
yeah.
anymore.
It started the next term, and like I said, that's
So
only
is it
$4 million,
year?
and it's 2 years almost, and not been
Yeah,
used
let
yet.
me, what I was going to say, and what I guess I would have looked at it as, let's go ahead and do the street bond, if that's all we can do right now, because we need immediate, as quick as we possibly can get that done. We need a bond plan. We talked about that in the meeting, an ongoing bond plan. Then the connector finishing that, and maybe the Greenway or something else. That could have been done in a bond, maybe a small bond, in 3 years when we would be ready to use some of that money on the enhancements or whatever. And what happened to Dickinson Avenue enhancements? Because that was dropped completely off of this. Was it going to be funded by some other? It's not on
I
this
thought
list.
the Dickinson Avenue list was included as part of the
I
street
don't have it in
improvement, but it's
this
not broken down.
broken down in here. So,
Well, I mean, you really got to get to what really happened here. And what you see is they took the streets, the sidewalk, I don't know where those extra enhancements came from, but they wanted to do that Greenway on in District 3-4, Councilmember Blackburn's Rick Smalley side. In order to do that, they said, okay, we're going to have to give Rose and Candy in District 1 and 2 something. So we're going to do the West Street streetscape.
West Fifth Street streetscape.
West Fifth Street streetscape. So that's what you had happen. Council members were able to put their own pork in this bond project, understanding all the work that was done with the bond commission. None of this stuff even came up and got the attention. They put their own stuff in here, stuff that they wanted. And this is not what the citizens want. I think the citizens should have an up and down vote on what we were going to put before as a bond package. I mean,
we put the package together.
On the bond package that was put together. Because as this stand right here, I can't support this. I'm not going to fund a $1 million mile greenway at all. Because if streets are really a problem, then put that money towards streets.
Well, the other discussion, which we talked about in the bond meeting, which really I didn't hear any discussion of it until one of our bond members sent us out an email alerting us again about no discussion has been made about the $2 million upkeep for each year that we suggested if the street bond was passed or given out to the public, that the city council be sure that they commit to do that. Now, I'm understanding they've got their budget coming up. They may commit it then. I'm not seeing that happen from the top.
He kind of shortchanged $2.5 million. It should have been $2.5 million of road street maintenance that's needed, or 2 or 3 years from now, we're going to be doing another bond.
Right. That's exactly right. Well,
we've
I think they
pretty
hurt
much made that
themselves, though.
decision.
And I think a lot of people would think, like I would have, Greenway to me seems more like in the parks area.
It's a recreation thing. People
And
not
they
using
were
the trail.
somehow,
their
because
argument,
they're
I
using
heard-
it, that you can get somewhere from one point A to B, they thought it was transportation.
Greenways
and I
are
heard-
all in the woods.
And I'm not saying that they can't
I'm not
classify
going
it like
to
that,
walk
but.
to the woods to walk on a greenway to walk back out to where I need to go at. It's not going to happen.
That's right. It isn't going to happen. So a lot of and then I know they're going to do this advisory committee that's going to, advocacy committee that's going to try to advocacy committee that's going to try to teach everybody about it. But you're not going to be able to change a whole lot of minds that might sink
Are they
that.
going to be able to do that? I mean, do they even have time to put together an advocacy committee?
I
They
don't
haven't even
know.
put a final vote together on this package yet. I mean, and who's going to advocate for it?
I don't know.
Michael, you going to chair that committee up?
No, I actually got asked to be on the committee yesterday. Someone asked me to be on the Horizon Plan Committee, and I turned them down. And you want to know why I turned them down? Yeah. Because we spent 6 months here of 2 to 3 hours at a time with a room full of people from every part of the city,
All
from
over
every
the city.
demographic that you can consider, elected by their own city council people. We spent all of those hours, and I don't feel like but a very small portion of what we put before them was considered. It wasn't what they wanted, so now they put what they want. They didn't put what was voted on. And the streets were voted, all but I think 2 people voted for the street bond as we proposed. And they've added and changed it. They never even gave consideration to the parks, to the sports complex.
Didn't even hear a presentation on it.
Nope, wouldn't even do it, even though Andrew Schmidt yesterday spoke with a committee of 100 and gave a great presentation. He's spoken with other boards and has just done a phenomenal presentation about what it could do for our city. Wouldn't even consider it.
If they would do something with
So-
something like an economic development piece like the sports complex, they could have all the greenways and parks they wanted.
All they wanted.
And that they just don't seem to get it. They're not good planners.
Well, I mean, and what kind of was a win?
There is no vision.
And what kind of was a win for Calvin Mercer that night is because he realized that the only way this bond was going to go through if all the city council members voted for it.
Right.
A certain council member was throwing with me a tantrum about the greenways. Compromise after compromise was made until Calvin finally made the last compromise, which got all the council members on board to vote for this. So, I mean, to me, we got election time coming up. That's the win for Calvin versus the mayor because the mayor only wanted the streets bond.
Mm-hmm.
So Calvin won. Mayor Thomas 0. I'm just trying to set up the election and get stuff going, get excitement going.
We're early, man. We got a long
A
way
long
to go.
way.
Let's
to
go
go.
ahead and start it.
Get it
Those
started.
people throwing bombs at each other.
All right. Well, we had to take our commercial break, so let's do that. We'll come back. We'll have a couple, 2, 3, or 4 minutes to wrap up the show. So we're gonna go back. We'll be back in a couple minutes. Welcome back to the Greenville Grit. Somehow I am having to bring the show back. I
That's
don't know.
okay.
There's
That's
so
all
much
right.
spirit going on today, guys. Come on. All right. So let's continue discussion on fiscal responsibility. Vehicle replacement fund. Do you remember we had the discussion 6, 8 months ago?
Yeah, it's been a while.
Even had a citizen come on the show.
That's right.
Discuss it. Had a little over $7 million in the vehicle replacement fund. Now, I've seen a lot of Calvin's newsletters in the last few weeks have lauded the vehicle replacement fund as such an important aspect that city leaders were very smart to put money in that fund to cover this because they've had emergency repairs lately to cover about $750,000. Now, again, go back. We have $7 million in the fund. Now, I think they drew it down a little bit that summer after they got criticized.
Yeah, they try to start spending money.
Yeah, they're going to spend the money because it got pointed out.
Where
to
did
them.
they spend it?
They probably reallocated it to another fund. There's no telling. But let's talk about it, Dennis. Fleet retirement, facilities maintenance. I know we've got one penny. Of course, now they're already saying, "Oh, we're reducing your property taxes."
Have they done that?
No, they're already saying they're going to vote on
Yeah,
it.
but they
They're already
need to
starting to
go
advertise.
ahead
That
and
was
do
in one of
it.
those letters. So we're going to reduce that 1 cent.
Just increase 1 cent.
Exactly.
Don't
why
go
even
back
Do it?
and
Why even do it? We're going to
just-
take it away and they ask you to give it back to us. It makes no sense. And people cannot be fooled by that. I'm going to be out there holding those signs on the street corner and be like, do not believe the hype, people.
I
This
know.
is crazy.
I mean, just increase it 1 cent. Quit talking about the 2 cent. They'd have a whole lot better chance of passing it with the lesser amount
If
talk.
you believe
Well,
anything.
based on a vehicle replacement fund that was nearly $7 million, we have almost enough money just in one simple fund to do all the street repairs without having to go through a bond at all.
Well, to let them take the Greenway money out of the vehicle
And we don't have to
replacement
borrow
fund
money and pay interest on
and leave
street
it off
repairs.
of the bond. What's wrong with that?
I don't know. If you believe most stuff in Calvin's email, I question your intelligence.
Did I say that I
We didn't
believe
say
most
that.
things?
We
Okay.
believed it.
Okay, just making sure.
But obviously, a lot of people do.
They should do some of their own homework.
And somebody has to be out here. There needs to be a counterpoint. I know we try to do a good job on here of fair and balanced reporting,
Well, we're not Fox News, man.
but we need to do it. There needs to be a better job of fact checking. And the newspaper lets them get away with this stuff. But we got to keep on putting this message out there. I mean,
If
this is
no
crazy.
one is contesting a statement, then what you're saying is a fact.
Mm-hmm.
If no one is
All right.
contesting it, it's fact. All right. Well, it's been a fun discussion, guys. We have to thank our sponsors one more time: Greenville Toyota, Ribeye Steakhouse, the Irving Group, and Kidd Construction Group. You can also catch us on Friday night at 6:30 on Cable 7, as well as Saturday morning at 9:30, or even go on to YouTube and type in Greenville Grit. Thank you for joining in, and we will see you next week.